Debbie frequently observed that Maddie, one of her 10-year-old students, was perpetually tardy. One day, while inadvertently trailing Maddie's dad's SUV, she stumbled upon a curious sight. Debbie had always been an observant teacher. Lately, she'd been noticing Maddie's peculiar behavior in class. When she approached the young girl, hoping to understand what was troubling her, she was wholly unprepared for Maddie's response, a revelation that compelled Debbie to dial 911. Teaching wasn't just a job for Debbie Griffin, it was a passion. Every day, she realized the immense responsibility she had, not just to impart knowledge, but to nurture the emotional and mental growth of her students. She was acutely aware that not every child came from a supportive home environment. It was during one of these reflections that she recognized the change in Maddie. Maddie's punctuality had waned, and the vibrant spark she once had seen dulled. She often looked exhausted and uninvolved. While other children played during recess, Maddie found a quiet corner to nap. Debbie, with her honed instincts, knew she couldn't let this go unnoticed. Despite Maddie being a new addition to her class, Debbie felt a protective urge towards her. She was aware that Maddie had recently moved to Lakewood with her father, James, but the details of their lives remained a mystery. Maddie's consistent tardiness, always shadowed by a haggard-looking James, only deepened Debbie's concern. Debbie's decade-long experience in teaching had taught her that children's behavioral changes were often cries for help. Not one to stand idly by, especially with Maddie's mother absent from the scene, she decided to confront the situation head-on. Observing Maddie's persistent fatigue and the heavy weight in her eyes, Debbie felt an urgent need to act. The day Debbie contacted the police was one that would remain etched in her memory. After James dropped Maddie at school, the police trailed him, easily identifying him by his unkempt look. They tracked him to his SUV, and what followed was a scene straight out of a movie. James Schweikart was visibly stunned when the police vehicles cornered him. Despite their assurances of assistance, he was hesitant and bewildered. The entire morning had been routine, centered around his daughter. But the unexpected police presence threw him off balance. Officer Butler, unfazed by James' reactions, took charge of the situation. As they began inspecting this SUV, a heart-wrenching picture unfolded. The vehicle was packed to the brim with belongings, hinting at a life in transit. The realization dawned on Officer Butler about the gravity of Maddie and James' living conditions. For the past 2 years, the spacious interior of an SUV had become home to James and his daughter Maddie. Their homelessness wasn't by choice. They had left Oklahoma due to circumstances that rendered it unsafe for them. Every dollar they had was stretched thin, just enough to cover the basic necessities, pushing the dream of a permanent home further away for both father and daughter. Encounters with the police, based on James' past experiences, rarely ever spelled anything good. But today, it was different. Officer Butler, instead of taking punitive measures against James, chose a path of empathy and support. Recognizing the dire situation, he swiftly arranged for temporary shelter for James and Maddie close to her school. But his kindness didn't stop there. He felt compelled to help James make the SUV roadworthy again. As the days turned into weeks, the ripple effect of Officer Butler's actions resonated throughout the community. The tale of James and Maddie's resilience became known to many. For Officer Butler, it was a simple philosophy. Any one of us could be in their shoes, and lending a helping hand was the humane thing to do. Apart from rallying community support, the officer and his colleagues actively sought employment for James, ensuring that he'd have a steady income. They even assisted him with paperwork for a rental property. However, the surprises weren't over. James's dilapidated SUV hadn't been operational for days, forcing him to walk Maddie to school. Addressing this, Sergeant Butler coordinated with Sun Valley Automotive, who, along with a tow truck company, generously decided to service the car without charging a dime. As word spread, the community's response was heartening. Donations poured in, clothes, food, furniture, and other essentials to give James and Maddie a fresh start. The thought of finally having a stable home was overwhelming, bringing tears to the eyes of the struggling father and his daughter. They were on the brink of despair, but this newfound support rekindled James's faith in humanity. He was resolute about ensuring a brighter future for Maddie and being the best possible father. While the community's generosity had been a beacon of hope, Sergeant Dave Hoover, who had been instrumental in collecting and storing the donated items, expressed a realistic sentiment. "With the ball now in James's court," he remarked, "now it's up to him." The future was uncertain, but the foundation for a fresh start had been laid. As the door to the new apartment closed behind Sergeant Dave Hoover, James would stand alone, amidst the echo of newfound silence, anticipating Maddie's return from school. This was their new beginning, the first step in a journey they had to embark on together. Sergeant Dave Hoover, reflecting on the events, voiced his belief in community values. "Being part of a community means being there for one another," he said. He expressed admiration for the speed at which everything had come together. "Always lend a hand up, never just a handout." James has shown determination, and it's heartening to see the community rally around him. In a mere span of 2 weeks, James was approached with 5 job prospects. Soon after, they received the green signal for their housing application. The joy was evident in James's voice. "I'm overwhelmed. Everything here, microwave, dishwasher, washer, dryer, this apartment surpasses any place I've ever lived in. It's not just about the amenities. It's the warmth, the feeling of being cared for." But it was more than just an apartment. It was a sanctuary. For James and Maddie, it symbolized hope, a brighter tomorrow, and the assurance that they were no longer alone. They had a community that cared, law enforcement that showed compassion, and most importantly, a home. All these chain of events started with one observant teacher, whose heart of gold and commitment to her students acted as the catalyst for change. If not for her, this turnaround in James and Maddie's lives might never have happened.